Hello, this is Brent from Black Crow Gaming, and I'm once again joined by Rob from Black Crow Gaming, and we're here to talk to you about another detachment from the new Death Guard Codex. Before we begin, I'd just like to thank our sponsors, Trident Futureworks, Glasshammer, and Terrain Forge. And also, before we begin in earnest, one of us went to a GT and did pretty well, didn't we, Rob?
Yes, so I went to Peterborough Slam. Don't know if people are aware of Peterborough Slam, but it's well, as the name suggests, in Peterborough. But it's a bit of a Shark Tank. Some of the best players in the UK go there, so it's my regular. It's where I go to most of my events, and to be honest, I think that's why I do well now because I've been playing against that quality of player all the time.
Yeah, it's
Um, so if you look at my ATC, you can just see me getting like I start off really crap, and then just as I've played these really good players, it's trial by fire really.
it's hosted by fellow Crow Paul Bridge. They have their
Mhm.
own sort of terrain set, which is very eerily similar to the new UKTC terrain. But
Yep.
Paul, you went 4-1.
Yes. So I think we've got a slide of my results.
Yes.
So
Yep.
I took Virulent Vectorum, so it's not related to Mortarion's hammer, but I just thought we'd sort of self-aggrandize a little bit and just say how we're getting on. But my first game was versus Chaos Knights by fellow Crow Jake, or Jack, I think his name is actually, and I write it as Jake. um, but yeah, really close game. But he rolled a lot of fours, which demons sometimes do. And, not taking it away from him, he's a fantastic player. Just really hard fought game. Lost that 74-86.
Is that Jack
Um,
Sayer?
yes.
Yes, he is a
Yeah,
very good
that's it.
player. Very
Yeah.
good.
I don't know why I put his name as Jake. I think it's just because it was noisy in there and I didn't hear him say his name properly. I then played Orcs Tactical Brigade. That was a bit of a walkover, 138. I then played Orcs Cult of Speed. A bit of a closer game, 90-78 to me. The score sort of, it was a bit of it was a bit of a steamroller, but he did manage to bring his score back right towards the end. Then I played against Orcs for the
Again.
third time in a row. This time with Warhorde, so at least it was 3 different detachments I played versus. Unfortunately, I put the guy's name as More Orcs because I was getting really frustrated with playing Orcs. So I forget the guy's name, so I really apologise if he does happen to watch this. That was 95-48 because, yeah, we're
Or
really good at killing infantry.
Maork.
More Orcs.
Mork.
More, yeah. And then the last game was against Necrons, Celtic Court. Really strong detachment and very, very shooty list. And to be honest, quite a close game, 91-84. I probably would have done a bit better had I remembered that Epic Challenge is a thing. So instead of fighting the scarabee spider things with a leader for 3 turns, I could have just precisioned out his leader, got rid of the 4+ fill no pain, and then just wiped them out all in one go.
Easy.
But ironically, by forgetting that and then remembering it when I drew Assassinate in round 4 or 5, I actually scored 5 points because the only other character he had was like hiding in a corner.
Big brain
So
plan.
failing upwards.
All part of the plan, boys.
And all said and done, I came second. So really, really happy with that. Not the biggest
Congratulations.
GT because it was quite close to one of the larger events. So I think it was 26 players, but some really big names there. It was won by a fellow Crow, Sam with his World Eaters.
Yes, one of the best World
Um,
Eater players we've got at the moment.
yep. Third place was also a Crow, and fifth place was also a Crow. So, there were quite a few Crows in attendance. And fifth place was a fellow Death Guard player, Ray Hawkins. Great player. Plays Death Guard primarily, also a bit of Chaos Knights as well. And I have a bit of a friendly rivalry with him. So, always happy to come above you, Ray.
Yes, he's a lovely guy as well. He helps Crows organise a lot of our RTT, so he's a
He
really
does.
stellar guy.
Yeah, genuine guy, very funny, and really good at the game. So, always happy to see him placing well.
So congratulations, and let's move on to Mortarion's hammer. This is
Let's.
the vehicle-based detachment for the Death Guard Codex. So a lot of units you'd see in other detachments you might not see. So you might not see the Demon Prince, which is a staple for a lot of lists, and you might not see many Plague Marines, which are also staples for lots of lists. It's nice. It means that you can see a depth and breadth of choice in the Death Guard Codex, which is excellent. It's what we want.
And you definitely take some units that you wouldn't take in other detachments.
Yes.
We'll talk about that when we get to our lists. So.
Like the Plague Burst Crawlers. Like, I don't think I'd play them in a different detachment, but they're quite good in this one.
And Defiler as well. I don't think I would touch another detachment. Especially now it's got a dinner plate for a base.
We won't get into that, but GW did rule last edition that you didn't have to play it on the base, but then they've changed their mind. So thanks.
Yeah, especially because it's not sold with a base. But anyway, we digress.
Yes. Okay, so the detachment rule for Mortarion's Hammer. Would you like to take us through it, or would you like me to get into it?
I can go for that. So it's Miasmic Bombardment. And effectively, at the start of each battle round, for a 2,000 point game, you select 2 enemy units. 1 enemy unit if it's a 1,000 point game, 3 enemy units if it's a 3,000. But as we're primarily competitive, we'll stick with the 2K. So you select 2 enemy units at the start of the battle round, and they have to be 12 inches away from every model on your army that is on the battlefield.
It's important to know.
At first, you think, oh, that could be limiting. But when you think about it, most of the time, they're either in your contagion range anyway, in which case all the stuff that you need to proc is going to proc. So your 6-inch deep strikes, your whatever else. Or they're over 12 inches away. So it's only going to really... There'll be like a band of units that are between 9.1 inches and exactly 12 inches away from every model where, oh no, I can't interact with them with this rule. And then until the end of the round, those 2 units that you've selected are afflicted. So that means they have -1 toughness and whichever contagion that you've selected.
It is worth noting that this is the start of the battle round and it lasts to the end of the other. So it's not the start of your turn. So if you go second, sometimes it can be difficult if you're planning to, say, deep strike a unit of Death Shroud in, and they go, oh, well, you've picked this unit, I'll just like swap them around so there's another unit helping them out to, so
the screen.
Yeah.
But you can use that to your advantage because you can go, right, I'm picking this unit here. They move it in a screening position. And then your turn, you move forward with something else to put something else in contagion naturally without the ability, and then deep strike that. So it can be a bit of a double bluff.
Yes. Yeah, that's what you have to play if you go second, I feel. Cool. So the enhancements. There are 4. I think 2 of them are pretty good, and 2 of them are pretty... They're not fantastic. They're not awful. They just are what they are. So
they kind of feel like the 2 of them are in the wrong detachment.
Exactly. So 2 of them really help infantry units, and this isn't really an infantry-based attachment. So the first one is Biomore Blight. It's 10 points, and this is for Malignant Plaguecaster only. At the start of your shooting phase, until the end of the phase, add 12 inches to the range characteristic of the bearer's Plague Wind weapons. So a 24-inch flamer. This is okay if you want to, because it puts it's just a 24-inch flamer. It's not awful.
The advantage to it is if he's with a unit of Plague Marines, it then becomes afflicted because obviously that's the Plague Marine's ability.
Yep.
If that unit shoots, and obviously the Plague Caster's attached, so it's part of the unit. So you could, in theory, shoot, but then at that point, you're not doing it for the deep strike because you're in the shooting phase. But it could be good for, like you say, you've gone second, people have shuffled things around, and you want a different unit to have -1 toughness, +1 save. It's a bit situational.
Yeah, I normally run plasmas on my Plague Marines anyway, so the 24-inch range doesn't really... And it doesn't increase his killiness. It just
No,
feels like a bit of a nothing enhancement to me.
it does. And it
But
feels like it's in the wrong detachment, quite honestly.
yes, yeah. Okay, so the second one is Tendrillus Emissions, Lord of Virulence only. While the bearer is within 3 inches of one or more friendly Death Guard vehicle units, the bearer has the lone operative ability, and each time one of those vehicles makes a ranged attack, the target that targets an enemy visible to the bearer, reroll a wound roll of 1. Well, considering the Lord of Virulence's ability is picking a unit and rerolling hits,
Yeah.
reroll hits and wounds, fantastic. It is incredible for this detachment. Very very strong.
I would say it's auto include, to be honest. If you're not taking at least one Lord of Virulence with this, I think you're probably playing this detachment wrong. And I would argue there's a case to take 2, but we'll get to that later.
Yes.
But even if you had a Lord of Virulence with this enhancement sat next to a Plague Burst Crawler or a Defiler or whatever, and all his job was literally just to run around pointing at things, I think you're doing well. You know,
It is still a strong combo, especially with
yeah,
the army rule. Like you're going to be wounding so much on 2s and 3s anyway.
yeah,
Yeah. And also, it's worth noting that the Defiler has one of the best blast guns that doesn't see a lot of play because it's
yeah.
because the Defiler, unless you're in this detachment, is very difficult to move around. So yeah,
Hmm.
sensational.
Although, just on a really quick note, I don't want to digress too much, but the new UKTC terrain maps are out at the moment. Very friendly to the Defiler, but we'll get to that later.
Yes, and also I think there's probably going to be a review of the train by
Yeah,
someone on Black Crow Gaming at some point, and if there's not,
yeah,
there should be.
yes, agreed.
Okay, do you want to go through the next two?
Yeah, so we've got Eye of Affliction, Death Guard model only. Ranged weapons equipped by models in the bearer's unit have the ignores cover ability while targeting an afflicted enemy unit. So obviously it does technically synergize with the detachment, but again, most of the time, if you're shooting something, you probably are within contagion range of it a lot of the time,
Yeah, a lot
especially with infantry, because your range is
quite
limited
short
at best.
range.
Yeah,
Plague Marines are generally not longer than 24 unless you've got the Blight
yeah.
launchers. So it
And
doesn't.
again, it's an infantry buff. Maybe there's a list out there that hasn't been discovered yet where this gets really good value, but 20 points of my money, I'm probably going to skip it unless somebody
It's
proves
not
it.
necessarily the 20 points of the enhancement. It's more
Hmm.
the 250 point Plague Marine unit
Yeah,
that benefit from it that I don't really
yeah.
want to take in this detachment.
I
But
mean, yeah, it could absolutely be amazing. You know, if you had Playcaster, buy up with this on, jump out of a
Rhino,
rhino, get the full re-rolls, boom, off we go. Ignores
fantastic.
cover
Yeah,
with all their weapons. But I
maybe.
think it just feels like the wrong detachment. That's my thing.
So
Um, and the next one is Shriekworm Familiar for 15 points. This says Death Guard model only. Once per battle round, you can target the bearer's unit with the Fire Overwatch stratagem for 0 CP. I think this is good, depending on how you're building your list. So again, I won't spoil my list too much, but I think if you've got a Lord of Virulence with 6 Death Shroud with this on,
it covers the
that is
centre
a
very
unit that
well.
people don't want to move infantry near. Let's face it. So
And well, with rerolls to wound as well, you don't even
yeah,
want to move much near it. Like light
yeah.
vehicles are probably going to get picked up, like a Sentinel. Very easy to pick those sorts of units up with
I actually
effectively 8 flamers.
I picked up a Tyrannid monster, T12 monster, that had 13 wounds left with those flamers. Because I did this was in Virulent Vectorum, but I did the thing where you can re-roll the number of shots stratagem.
Hmm.
So anything that wasn't like a 4, 5, or 6, I just re-rolled. And then I ended up getting something insane, like 45 hits or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was a lot. And then I just fished for sixes. And
Who
I
needs
ended up rolling
anti-tank?
about 19 sixes or something. Mine, +1 to the save. So there were, I think there were 4 up saves or something on this big monster. And it took 13 damage and died. So
Oh, poor Tyrannid bio weapon. No, I don't feel
yeah,
that sorry for them. Who needs
no, I
tanks
don't. Yeah,
and monsters when you've got Terminators.
But again, I don't think this is auto include, but I think it's very strong. So
Yes.
definitely a place for it in lists.
Yes, absolutely. They if you were playing two and you had the points, that it does work, especially with Mortarion's hammer, deep striking units 6 inches away.
Yeah.
It does give you a certain amount of board control. So I get it. I get people
Yeah.
playing it. Okay, let's look at some stratagems. We've got the first one, which is Blighted Land. So this is the only 2CP stratagem in the detachment, and it happens at the end of the movement phase. One Death Guard vehicle unit from your army. Select one terrain feature within 24 inches of and visible to your unit. Until the start of your next turn, enemy units are afflicted while they are within 3 inches of that terrain feature. So not wholly within, just within.
Just within. So 2.9 inches, 3 inches, that sort of
Yes.
range. Now, the timing of this is end of your movement phase. So this is when we're deep striking. So yes, it is 2CP. No, you're not going to use it very often. But when you do use it, it could win you the game. Now, my logic behind that is you've selected 2 units to be in contagion range afflicted. And your opponent has cleverly, you've gone second, they've cleverly screened off those 2 units or whatnot. You can't screen off from terrain as well.
No.
So, this is the sort of thing that you're going to tell them about at the start of the game. You're going to be honest. Nobody wants to be a gotcha player. So you'll tell them about this and they'll instantly go, 2CP,
Oh, it's nothing. Yeah.
I'm just going to ignore that. They'll forget about it. And then at a really key point in the game where you've got 2CP, you're going to be able to deep strike their home objective, because let's face it, there's terrain on their home objective,
and especially on new terrain boards, you can normally get a really good line of sight down the sides, see it. They might be hiding behind an L shape, and you go, well, actually, it doesn't bother me that much. Here we go.
Yeah. So again, I know they have to be visible, but like I say, you can often, with a bloat drone or something quite quick, you can get some sort of angle on them. You can even, if you really want, you can put a vehicle into reserve. Just come on at a board edge that has line of sight to their home. But even then, not necessarily their home. It could just be a no man's land objective. But this can be really good because, like I say, you can't really screen out a terrain piece. So, yeah. Like I say, I don't think you'll play this every game. But when you do, I think it'll be really, really impactful.
Yeah, it's very situational. Okay, so the next one is Relentless Grind. Your movement phase or your charge phase, and it's one Death Guard vehicle from your army that has not been selected to move or charge this phase until the end of the phase. Each time your movement makes a normal, advance, or charge move, it can move horizontally through terrain. Well, me and you both play a little bit of Chaos Knights, and it is a strat that sees a lot of use for Chaos Knights. So I've seen this used quite a lot. Take it away. You're the Defiler guy.
So, Defiler is obviously a really good example for this because, it's now on a base the size of a football pitch or whatnot.
Is it 150 mil?
Yeah. So, no, 160.
Oh, geez.
It's the largest base I own for any model that I own. So, it's nearly as big as an objective marker. Like when you have the mouse pad material objective markers.
Yes, yeah.
If you put a Defiler directly on one of those, it pretty much only leaves like a tiny little line around the outside. Very good.
Maybe it's a ploy to stop Tau getting on objectives.
Yeah, potentially. But I mean, this is good for so many reasons. Yes, Defiler, brilliant, really good in melee. So maybe you've got him staged somewhere and he's just got a gun sticking out where he's shooting things. And then they move something close enough so that you can run through the wall and punch it. Great. But also it could be for, okay, I'm going to drive my plague burst crawler through this building. So I've now got line of sight on this key target. If you're running a land raider full of plague marines, I'm going to I'm going to move my land raider through 1-2 pieces of terrain and then get all my plague marines out and they can charge.
I think my favourite use, I know I don't really play Defilers because I don't have one, but on the bloat drones they have fly. So if there's models an inch away from the wall and you use this attachment, you can go through the wall and then you can go through them. So I think it works really well with units that fly, so you can get it's very hard to screen them at that point.
Yeah. And it's just a shame Mortarion's not a vehicle, because I would absolutely love this on Mortarion. Because obviously back in the 9th edition days, when fly was just ignore terrain effectively, which I loved, Mortarion would do that anyway. He'd fly through a building, he'd fly over the models. But doing this with vehicles, really, really good. Flesh mowers, really good. Charging something that can't otherwise reach.
You mean you don't like doing a bit of a Pythagoras theorem to work out the shortest distance to go over a triangle?
You basically just go Mortarion can't get over anything without a 5-inch advance, any terrain really. So, but yeah, I think this is, you're probably using this once or twice per game. Yeah, have this on tap.
Yeah, fantastic strat. Okay, so the next one is drawn to despair, and it happens in your shooting phase. One Death Guard unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack that targets a visible enemy unit, excluding aircraft, within your opponent's deployment zone, you can reroll the hit roll. I think this is good on paper, especially with the more open maps.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen it used more than once a game, maybe. Just because it's situational, that a lot of people hide the stuff in their deployment zone. That's the aim.
I mean, there's some use of this. We're in a vehicle detachment. People do screen out their backfields and whatever, but maybe turn 2, turn 3, when things have come out of hiding a little bit, but they're still in their deployment zone.
I could see maybe using it if you've got maybe a rhino full of plague marines, maybe the one that gets the ignores cover, and it goes through a wall into your opponent's deployment zone. Everyone jumps out, and it's good times.
Reroll the hit roll and all the plague marines,
and reroll the wound because of the rhino. So
you won't be using this every game, but again, when you do use it, I think it's going to be pretty good.
Yes, absolutely. The next one is Font of Filth, and this happens in your shooting phase. One Death Guard vehicle unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase. Until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in your unit have the assault ability. One thing I really like about this is it happens in your shooting phase, so you don't have to commit to it till after you've seen the advance roll. Will you get into range? Will people reactive move? We just have to see. And then when you have that information, then you can choose to spend the CP for this strat.
So my use case for this is to combine it with going through walls.
Yep.
And then use it on a squad of Mythic Blight Haulers, because I can imagine, because they're quite easy in a way to avoid getting into melter range of, because they've got to drive around buildings and they've got to do this thing and that thing and whatever else. But if you can imagine now, a unit of 2 of those advances through a building, gets to the other side of a building, and then uses this strat to then do a close-up melter shot, double melter shot, all with lethal. You could potentially finish something off.
Yes, I love Blight Haulers at the moment. They're, for me, one of the best units in the army. So I haven't tried that, but I want to give it a go. See how it feels. Okay, so the next stratagem is drawn to oh no, we've just done drawn to it is Icing a Storm. I'll let you take this away because I'm behind on my little cheat sheet, so I'll let you read this one out.
You do this in your opponent's command phase. You target one of your Death Guard vehicles, and you select one objective marker visible to one or more models in your unit. Each afflicted enemy unit within range of that objective marker must take a battle shock test. Enemy units afflicted by the stratagem do not need to take any other battle shock tests in the same phase. So basically, if something's below half strength, you wouldn't use this. Unless, I guess, because they can't auto pass it, because you can only auto pass the command phase normal one.
Yes.
So if you wanted to force it on a unit that they were otherwise going to spend a CP on to auto pass, this could be good, or a fully health unit. But again,
Off the top of my head, are there any units which reduce leadership in the Death Guard Codex? I can't think of any that I play normally.
I can't think of
'Cause
any.
that's what you'd want to combo it with, but by itself it's
Yeah,
okay. It's a bit of a punt for a 1 CP to ask someone to fail a leadership test.
yeah, and I think as a Chaos Knights player, you know, leadership shenanigans generally are quite crap. But
Yeah.
I think Tuning's the one where you have to, take two battle shot test on everything. Actually, that's quite impactful because there's so many roles.
Especially if you can start reducing leadership, like with the
But
yeah
this feels like I'd play it if I was desperate. Like
swimming in CP and losing.
yeah, and
Yeah.
losing, and I think to myself, if they fail that battle shock and lose that objective, that could win me the game.
Yes. Yeah.
So again, it's not the strongest stratagem. You won't play it every game, but yeah, maybe.
Yeah. It's fine. It's out there. And the last stratagem is Stinking Mire. This is the start of your opponent's charge phase, and you target one Death Guard vehicle unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, each time an enemy unit selects your unit as a target of a charge, subtract 2 from the charge roll. This is not cumulative with any other negative modifiers to the charge roll. So it is vehicles only, so
Yeah,
you can't really use it. You might want to use it on a fights first unit, Plague Marines. You can't do
yeah.
it. But I guess it is quite helpful if your opponent's charging and it's a 6 or 7,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to make it difficult for them.
I think the use case for this is the heavy blight launcher, because it has blast and it can't shoot into combat. I think if you can stop someone from tagging one of those with this, that's pretty good.
See, I thought it would probably be more the blight drones, because if you can stop as many enemies getting into combat with it, it can just fall back and shoot and charge in your turn more freely. That's when I would want to try and use it.
But then if they're, you don't fall back, shoot, and charge if they haven't succeeded in the charge.
No.
So, but you see the heavy blight launcher drones, because they have blast. If you tag one of those, they can only shoot out of combat, and their melee's crap. So, I'd really want to be using this. Out of all our vehicles, I would use this primarily on heavy blight launcher drones, I think. We've stolen this from Tau, because this used to be a Tau strat.
Well, we used to have a strat very similar to this in the index, didn't we?
9th edition. We didn't have it.
Didn't we have a reduce charge by 2?
We did in 9th edition, but not in the index. Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Playcaster can make things -2, which is why it doesn't stack with this.
Yes.
So you can't make them -4, which would be hilarious.
That would be very funny. It'd be very good. If you could do that, I could see both the Malignant Playcaster's ability, the enhancement we talked about earlier, and this being used all the time.
Yeah. I mean, the other use case for this is you've got vehicles on an objective. They want to charge a vehicle that they can't possibly kill, but they're just going to out OC you because they're intercessors or whatever to OC each. They're not on the objective. They try and charge something, and you make it harder for them.
Maybe if you've got like the square vehicles like rhinos where they can sit an inch away from the wall.
Yeah.
And then they then have to go quite a long way around to get to you.
Yeah,
maybe it gets used a few times.
One thing I never underestimate is that whatever the charge is, making it too harder means it can fail.
Yes.
One of those orc players that that we briefly talked about at the start of the video, he failed 2 5-inch charges. One of them he had rerolls on. So, I mean,
I was happy.
He wasn't best impressed. And I don't think I lost the game. So I don't think I won the game because of that, because he was charging like a fights first unit anyway, but he wanted to slap back and he just didn't get the chance. I shot him and charged him anyway. But yeah, adding 2 inches to any charge, even if someone's right next to you, and they only have to roll a 2, actually, if that's game critical that they fail that, sometimes adding 2 to the charge, they can roll double 1s, they can roll a 2 and a 1. Maybe they don't have any CP for a reroll because they think, oh, that's an automatic charge. I won't save any CP for it.
Yep.
Yeah, can come in
Yeah.
clutch.
Over the course of a weekend, I can see it getting used a few times, so no, it's not the
Yeah.
worst one. Okay, would you like to talk about your Mortarion's hammer list?
Yes, so I will preface this by saying I have not actually had a game of Mortarion's Hammer yet. I do have a game booked in, but because I'm using Virulent Vectorum competitively, that's obviously the detachment I've been playtesting and taking to events and everything else. So this list is definitely subject to change, but this is kind of my initial thoughts seen based on my own experience of using the units, having seen what's done well in the meta, the fact that I bought a 3D printed defiler from Den of Imagination.
It's a very, very beautiful defiler, and if you're on the 40k competitive Death Guard group on Facebook,
Yeah,
it's there's pictures of it on there, and it is actually it's very nice.
and plug out to that Facebook group because there is a larger one called Plague Marines of something, which has thousands of people, but it's not competitively focused. It's just everything, which is great. Those communities are great, but the Death Guard competitive page is just focused on competitive play. So anyway, my list is only 3 characters: a Lord of Contagion, a Lord of Virulence, and a Lord of Virulence with the Tendril submissions, which, as a reminder, is the lone op and reroll ones to wound on visible units. One thing I would consider is switching the Lord of Contagion out and maybe putting another Lord of Virulence in, and then having the free Overwatch with the spoiler 6 Death Shroud Terminators. So what I've gone here is I've taken Mortarion's hammer and I've tried to create an anvil for it. So the hammer is the Plague Burst Crawlers and the detachment rule.
Are you a
So
flamer guy on the Plague Burst crawlers or the mini las cannon sort of guns?
I've gone. I have gone. I believe for two entropy cannons, one flamer. The logic being that the one with the flamer will stick near home. So the one with the entropy cannons will stick near home. That's it, and 2 with flamers because they're going to be the more aggressive push forward ones.
Yeah.
The Lord of Virulence will just be dancing around, pointing at things, getting blown up.
I would be
Yeah,
tempted.
yeah.
So no, I was just saying, like I've also been running or seen run
Mm.
3 Plague Burst crawlers, and I normally run them with the flamers. But if I had the free Overwatch blob, I'd be semi
Yeah,
tempted to swap that for the free entropy cannons, just
yeah,
because like you already have like this really good Overwatch threat. But yeah, it's
yeah.
just interesting, like choices and
I mean, they're kind of because I've not played it. I think I'd be open to either. I can build either because my Death Card collection is ridiculously big, and if my wife asks, it costs 138 quid. so,
yeah.
uh, so what I've basically gone for is I haven't stocked up on vehicles as much as you might expect because I know people do kind of just go Mortarion's hammer vehicles. Everything must be vehicles. But I've tried to go for a hammer and anvil approach where Plague Burst Crawlers, they can do indirect. I can select 2 units, give them the +1 to save. Potentially, if I can see them, I can reroll wounds against them. I can do those combos. I've got the 3 bloke drones with heavy blight launchers because hello, they're undercosted and brokenly undercosted. So
Very
I'm
good data
definitely
sheet.
taking those. I've got Potswalkers because I think having a screening unit or having them sit on home, depending on who your opponent is, I just think you need some form of screen or some form of home cap going on. And then I've got a 6-man Death Shroud, a 3-man Death Shroud, and a 3-man Death Shroud. I have the leaders to run all 3 with leaders if I want to. Just depends, because I may want that Lord of Virulence with Tendril submissions on his own, in which case I may just have a 3-man block. But the idea of this list really is you've got all the ranged from the various vehicles, just hammering away, but also you've then got the Death Shroud Terminators to take advantage of the detachment rule.
Oh
So
yeah.
they're the ones that are going to deep strike in, they're going to kill a key unit in a key place. You've got your drones to do shooting or scoring. So one of the downsides to Mortarion's hammer with being so vehicle heavy is that you don't have a lot of action monkeys.
Yep.
So Potswalkers could be action monkeys, or your drones maybe. And then right at the bottom of the list, looking like a very small word, but definitely not a small model, is the Defiler. And the Defiler is very good in melee, and it's okay in shooting. Not amazing, not bad.
I find with the Lord of Virulence though, because it's battle can's a blast weapon,
Yeah,
it does sound. It looks on paper like it will benefit from a Lord of Virulence babysitting
yeah.
it.
And also, it strips cover when it shoots something, which is one of the main reasons you take it. Because if you can get a unit where the Defiler can see it, but the Plague Burst Crawlers can't,
Yep.
you've selected it for Contagion with the detachment roll. So you shoot it with the Defiler, get it all gunked up and, not able to benefit from cover. It's now afflicted, so it's got +1 to its save. You're now shooting it with 3 Plague Burst Crawlers, all at +1 AP, all at +1 save. So it's effectively AP2 because they're not benefiting from cover. So you're now launching D6 +3 plus blast.
And potentially rerolls tit as well from the Lord of Virulence.
Potentially, yeah. So, that you can really hurt stuff. Whereas before, let's say you look at a Terminator brick, most of the time with a Plague Burst Crawler, they're saving on 2s.
Mm-hmm.
They've got 2 up save, AP1, but they ignore cover. They're not in Contagion. Okay, brilliant.
Cool, yeah.
In this detachment, they are in Contagion because you've selected them with the detachment rule. And you've managed to shoot, do a little bit of damage, tickle them with a Defiler, but now they don't benefit from cover. So the AP2 on the bloat drones becomes AP3, ignores cover. The AP1 on the Plague Burst Crawler becomes AP2, ignores cover. So suddenly your damage output goes up significantly.
Yes, yeah, it does.
So my only concern with my list is potentially the secondary scoring. So that's something I'd look at as being, is there something I would drop?
The Lord
would
of
I go
Contagion.
down to 3x3?
I haven't done it so much recently, but when I played the Lord of Contagion in the Grotmus detachment by himself, because he gets back up with the enhancement that gives him wounds. By themselves, they can also be quite good secondaries. If you don't feel the need to if there's nothing you need 6 Death Shroud and Lord of Contagion to kill, if your opponent doesn't have that, then by themselves they're quite tough just to get rid of. So they're also by themselves quite good action monkeys.
So I think one of the things that I kind of really miss that I couldn't squeeze into this list in its current form is Chaos Spawn, because Chaos Spawn are very disruptive and they're very good at scoring.
Yes.
Because they're quite fast for our units.
Fantastic units.
So yeah, it's not a final list. I'm not going to sit here and say, I'm going to take this list to a GT and come second again or anything like that. But this is my sort of initial take on it, really.
Cool. So I have a small admission to make. I also haven't played this detachment, but I have played against it a few times, and I've been smashed, in particular, by Paul's list. So this is the list I've decided to submit this time. So as you can see, there's the Lord of Virulence with Tendrilist emissions. Only one character, so it doesn't give up Assassinate very easily. And then just everything's vehicles. Everything is there to present a anvil to your opponent and say, look, it's a stat check. You've got to try and kill this many vehicles. The vehicles are cheap. Most of them are 90 points. They'll trade well. A lot of them have a 5-up invuln save, and if you've got 3 of them taking hits, one of them's likely to spike their invulns and then be in a good position. So we've got 3 Mephitic Blight Haulers, which are very quickly becoming my favourite unit in the book. These guys, as you said, if they go through walls and get into positions you want them to be in, they're +1 to hit and wound. I've played a lot of Emperor's Children recently, and these guys just absolutely kill the Demon Princes. Knock them out of the park.
Yeah, -1 damage doesn't help a lot when you've got Melter +2, does it?
No, it doesn't. Then I've got 3 Plague Burst Crawlers like you. In this detachment, they're hard to kill. They have movement now. They have the ability to go through walls, and they're quite good. If you've got a Lord of Virulence that's gone out there to try and kill some stuff, he can light stuff up. Unlike you, I've then gone for just two units of free Death Shroud Terminators.
Yeah,
These, they're literally just, if your opponent doesn't screen well, they're targets of opportunity. Drop in your
yeah,
opponent's back lines and get a charge onto their home base. That's all they're for. A Predator Destructor strips cover, or sort of plus one AP,
plus one
and
AP to everything else that shoots at that target
yes,
after
plus
that
one
shot.
AP. So he's very good at helping out the Plague Burst Crawlers, just like Good Defiler is. Exactly
And
the same.
it's one of two data sheets in the entire list that doesn't have an invul. But you're only paying what are they 135, I think.
Yes.
They're not expensive. If you lose it, you're not too upset.
No.
But Potswalkers and the Predator Destructor are the only things in the list without an invul. So yeah,
This is Paul's teams list. So if
yeah,
you get this into the right opponent, they just won't have an answer, hopefully.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I've really enjoyed. Well, I didn't really enjoy playing it. He 20-0'd me very very quickly. The bloke drones, the three of them, exactly the same as
yeah,
you. They're just an undercosted unit right now. Two with flesh mowers. These, as I said, they go through walls. The minus 2 inch to your charge, I see it more as stopping them piling in. Like if they're strung out and they only just
yeah,
make a charge, then sometimes they might not be able to pile in and consolidate as much as they
yeah,
want to. So yeah, that's uh,
yeah,
yeah. This is Paul's list. I've seen him do very good things with it. So yeah, I look forward to trying it out. Unfortunately, I don't have quite as many models as Paul has,
yeah.
so might just have to be on TTS.
I mean, I can build this, but I have an insane amount of Death Guard as we previously stated. I think I added it up, and I've got 12,000 points of fully painted Death Guard. So, because every time I want to build a list and I go, oh, I've only got two of those, I'll buy a third one then. So,
Going to
um,
going to tournaments for me is such a good motivator because I'll write a
yeah,
list and then go, oh, I haven't got these models and I haven't got them painted, and I go, well, actually, I'm going to get these models and I can get them painted for a tournament.
yeah. I mean, a lot. My Death Guard is the thing that's mostly GW genuine, but I'm not. I'm not against the odd 3D printed model here and there or 3D parted print, bits to convert because other than GW tournaments, the vast majority of tournaments are fine with 3D prints as long as they are representative, easily identifiable as the thing they're supposed to be,
Yes,
which
absolutely.
a lot of prints are. So
The thing for me is so it's identifiable and not confusing. So if you're a Death Shroud Terminator and that Terminator's armed with something that looks
yeah,
kind of like a Death Shroud, as long as you then don't say, oh, but this one's a Blight Lord, it's fine.
yeah.
People are generally they're happy to just play the game.
So going back to Paul's list a sec.
Yeah.
So blight drones with flesh mowers, I haven't used in the index or codex. But I'm actually starting to come around to them a little bit because I've always liked the flamers for the Overwatch threat.
Hmm.
But one thing I've kind of found is if you roll 11 hits on the Overwatch, amazing. You think they're the best decision you ever made. You wipe out an entire squad of, plague marines or whatever. So space marines. We don't kill our own. Space marines or whatever. You kill some infantry with it. You make a charge that they were going to do kind of crap now or whatever. Or you roll 2 ones for a number of shots, and then you're a real sad boy, and it's a waste of CP. You've basically done nothing. So actually, the flesh mower potentially, although it can't Overwatch, I think it's more consistent
It is, and
because it's always getting 10 attacks. It is 10 now, isn't it?
yes,
I
it
think it's
is,
still 10.
and it
So, you know,
in this list in particular, there isn't a lot of combat, especially with
yeah,
no plague marines. It really helps balance it so that you do have options for like going
yeah.
forward and actually fighting models.
And they're really good at clearing screens because, a bloke drone with a flesh mower with the +1 save contagion probably is picking up an MSU squad of something.
Yeah, so it's normally 10 attacks, AP1 becomes AP2, damage
Yeah,
2. I think it's strength 7, which doesn't sound great, but then you realise the -1 toughness,
yeah.
most things are going to be tough, wounding most infantry on 3s or 2s.
Threes or
And
twos, yeah.
and actually they are consistent.
you're hitting on threes, so on average you're hitting them 6 to 7 times. 1 or 2 of those are going to be lethal because Death Guard everything's lethal, and you're probably going to wound with the rest. So you're probably doing 7 wounds to most infantry.
Yeah.
Unless you've got my dice, in which case you do like 2. But,
Yeah. Or
um,
you roll like Paul and you actually wound 10 times every time.
they then save a third of those, which means on average they're losing 4 to 5 2-wound Space Marine equivalents.
Very easily.
That's fine. That's consistent. And the fact they can't just throw a chaff unit into it to tie it up because it can fall back and charge. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
And it
Exactly.
can fall back over the thing that you've screened it with. So yeah. And in this detachment, it's like, oh, I'm hiding in this building. You're
Does
like,
the
okay, I'll breach that building and get behind you and charge you.
I don't think you can use the stratagem to go through terrain if you fall back, can you? No, you can't.
No,
It's
it
just
might
normal advance
be.
or charge, which but then
Yeah.
again, that doesn't detract anything from the flesh mowers. They're still
No.
very good.
No, but like the advantage of the flesh mower is that even if you're not doing it on a fullback, being able to go through a building in this detachment with a flesh mower, because a lot of times people put like scouts or infiltrators or something fairly piss weak, but it's blocking that wall with the 1-inch trick.
Yeah.
And you've got a flesh mower, and you're like, I just can't get an angle to actually with the movement and the charge, even though they're quite fast. But if you can just fly through the wall and over them, and then sit,
Surprise.
1.1 inches away from them, so you're not failing any charge. Just fantastic,
Yeah.
really good.
Well, thank you very much for your time this evening, Rob. And
Yeah.
I've had an excellent time talking to you about Mortarion's Hammer. If anyone out there watching has any opinions, if they've got their own lists, please feel free to throw it in the comments. And hopefully you'll join us for another detachment review soon.
And don't forget the Facebook page, Death Guard Competitive, because you can share lists on there as well.
Yes, it's a very good source of information, camaraderie, and advice as well. There's lots of people out there who are willing to help you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.